Okay, today we're going to read a tape and I'm going to make it quick, simple, and easy. Everybody wants to try to complicate it or they don't want to talk about it because they struggle with it as well. So we're just going to simplify it, make it quick and easy, and let's get to it. All right, there's two things up front I want you to know, and that is there's 16 sixteenths in 1 inch. Okay, so between 9, this line that goes from the top to the bottom here, and the line that goes from the top and the bottom here, that's your 1 inch marks. This is actually would be considered 0 if we're counting from this point back to 10. All right, now let me zoom in here so we can see this better. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point out your 8s here. All right, your 8s are between your 16th marks. Now they're all a 16th. Every one of these marks is considered a 16th. Okay, but to call them by 16ths, it's an improper fraction. You would sound uneducated because it's not proper. All right. So we're going to count this out here calling it 16ths just to get familiar with it. All right. This is 1/16. I'm sorry, we're going to do 8s. We're going to do 8s. There's 1/8 right here. 2 8s. 3 8s. 4 8s. I said there's 8 of them. So that's halfway, right? That's also your half-inch mark, and that's a proper fraction. That's what you call it, a half-inch. This is 3 8s. That's what it is. This is your 2 8s, and this is your first 8. There's your 1. Okay. So, just to get familiar with that. Now we're going to move on. So we're just going to count these larger lines, the bigger lines. That's 1/8, 2 8s, 3 8s. Now you notice these little lines on each side. Okay, these little lines are 16ths. Okay, so all the short lines, the real short ones that are consistent all the way through here, are your 16ths. Now, so we're going to count our 8s. That's 1/8, 2 8s, 3 8s, 4 8s, 5 8s here on the other side of half inch, 5 8s, 6 8s, 7 8s, 8 8s, 1 inch. Okay, now we're going to count our 16s. Bear with me. Okay. So if this is 0, this is 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16, 5/16, 6/16, 7/16, 8/16, 9/16, 10/16, 11/16, 12/16, 13/16, 14/16, 15/16, 1 inch, the line top to the bottom. Okay, so there's 8 8s and 16 16ths in an inch. Now, we're going to call them by their proper name. Okay, here we go. Let's get up close and personal here. This would be your 0. So that's 1/16, an 1/8, 3/16, a quarter, 5/16, 3 8s, 7/16, a half inch. Okay, 9/16, 5 8s. 11/16, 3/4. 13/16, 7/8. 15/16, 1 inch. Okay, now you're going to tell me what we're looking at. All right, here we go. 0, what is this? The first line, 1/16. Second line, 1/8. Third line, 3/16. Fourth line, 1/4. Fifth line, 5/16. Sixth line, 3/8. Seventh line, 7/16. Eighth line, 1/2 inch. Ninth line, 9/16. 10th line, 5/8. 11th line, 11/16. 12th line, 3/4. 13th line, 13/16. 14th line, 7/8. 15th line, 15/16. End of the line, 1 inch. Okay, one more time. Let's go through this. Okay, I'm going to ask and you say it out loud. 1 inch, 0. First line is yes, 1/16. Second line is yes, 1/8. Third line is yes, 3/16. Fourth line is yes, 1/4. Fifth line is yes, 5/16. Sixth line is yes, 3/8. Seventh line is yes, 7/16. Eighth line is, what is it? Yes, 1/2 inch. Ninth line is 9/16. 10th line is yes, 5/8. 11th line is yes, 11/16. 12th line is yes, 3/4. 13th line is yes, 13/16. 14th line is yes, 7/8. 15th line is 15/16. And 16th line is 1 inch. Okay, now we're going to go back and we're going to point this out now that we've gone over it. The little lines that are consistent all the way across. All these little lines. And if you notice, they're all the same height. All the way across. Those are your 16th marks in calling them what they are in a proper fraction. This is a 16th. That's 1. That's an 1/8. That's 3/16. That's 1/4. That's 5/16. 3/8. 7/16. 1/2 inch. Are you getting that? Now let me show you why. Let me point out the 3/8. You can look at this from the beginning here at 9, from this line going from top to bottom to the 1/2 inch here, halfway up. Okay? If you look at these center lines, right, these lines here in the middle, These are taller. This is your first eighth. This is your second eighth. This is your third eighth. Now, if you notice, this line and this line are the same height. Okay? And this one's a little taller. That way, when you look at it, you see the distinction. You see the different. Okay? The 16ths remain the same height all the way through. That way, when you look at your tape, you know what you're looking at. And use your half-inch mark here for your reference from zero, from the front of your tape, wherever you're starting, to the end, okay? And then your half-inch mark goes halfway up and back on each top and bottom. You can identify, okay, are you on this side or are you on this side? Because this is where you mess up when you take a measurement. You know, if I'm looking at 9, and I'm pulling from 9 here, all right? And so I look at 9, if it's 9 inches and 5/8, I know my 5/8 is on the other side of this half-inch mark, all right? So I look at my 9, my measurement's 9 and 5/8, so I look at that and I say, okay, 9 and 5/16. So I know 5/16 is on the other side of the half-inch mark. So here's my 5/8. Now, if I want to check it, I count the longest lines from 0. There's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, and I know that a half-inch is 4/8. But we don't call it 4/8. Calling a half-inch 4/8 is an improper fraction. But in my mind, in my head, I acknowledge and I know that a half-inch is 4/8. So therefore, I know that 5/8 is on the other side of this half-inch mark. Okay? So 5/8 is always 5/8. A half-inch is half-inch, and that's calling it by its name and calling it by what it is properly, which is a proper fraction. Okay? So I know my half-inch mark is 4/8. I know that, but we don't call it that. Okay? But in my mind, I acknowledge half-inch is 4/8. Therefore, the next eighth over, which is the next longest line up, which is here, that's 5/8. Okay? Now, my 3/4 mark is 6/8. But again, that would be an improper fraction to call it 6/8. So in my mind, if I need to, I can acknowledge that it's 6/8. All right? So 6/8, all right, which is actually what? 3/4 or 12/16. All right, we don't call it 12/16 because 12/16 would be an improper fraction. So we know that 3/4 is 6/8, and how do we know that? Because there's 8/8 in an inch. Okay, here's 6/8, where's 7/8? 7/8. Where's your 8/8 mark? Here, your 1 inch mark is your 8/8. Not to confuse you, but just to give you that heads up so you have that information in your mind. Okay? So just to keep it simple, we'll go back. This is if we're looking at 9, where our measurement's 9 and 7/16, then we know 9. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is right next to your half-inch mark. Okay? So there's your 7/16 here. But when you get familiar with your measuring tape, then you know there's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and the next line over is 7/16. You know that. And you know 7/16 is right next to your half-inch. And if you know 7/16 is right next to your half-inch, you know that 9/16 is on the other side of your half-inch. And then when you can acknowledge that 5/8 is next to 9/16, because you say, okay, 9/16, one more is 10/16, but that's an improper fraction. So we have 5/8, and that's right next to your 9/16, which is right next to your half-inch mark. Okay, and that's how it works. I don't care what the measurement is. You could have 8 feet, 9 inches, and 1/8. Okay, 8 feet, 9 inches, because you know there's these foot marks on these tapes. All right, we have these foot marks, and it's marked out in feet. So if you're looking at the foot mark, you can go, okay, it's 86 inches, or it's 92 inches. 92, that's 8 feet. So if we're counting it by feet, all right, we look at the feet marks. So if it's 1 foot, 1 inch, and 3/4, where is 1 foot, 1 inch, and 3/4? Well, here's 1 foot, here's 1 inch. Now, 3/4. There's a half. There is 5/8. There is 11/16, 3/4. Okay, so we have 1 foot, 1 inch, and 3/4 right here at this point, right there. Okay, 3/4 mark. Okay. And that's how you do that. If you have any questions, please send me your comments. I'll get back to you on it. And I look forward to hearing from somebody. Looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you for your time, for watching. And please comment, ask questions. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. And whatever I can do to help you out, just let me know. All right, so take care, God bless, and continue to have a happy new year, or at least the best one as possible. Bye for now, and never give up, because there's always a way. Thank you. Whoops. Here we go.